I made a bet Jesus could be the odds. He can shine through me cause I'm the son of God. Don't feel nobody, I'm rockin' feel God. Can't rob a two cause I ain't feeling God. I made a bet Jesus could be the odds. He can shine through me cause I'm the son of God.
Yo, welcome to the Question Mindset Podcast with your host, Olivier J. Darcis. I'm excited. As you guys know, this is not the first episode of the new year and the new season 3 that we got going on, but this is the first official episode walking into this new vision where this environment, this platform is a home to help give you deep understanding on topics and questions that'll make you a better believer in Christ, no matter what level you're on, to teach you how to carry yourself in life and in business. You know, the Lord is going to be leading me on these topics, these discussions, these questions, answering these questions, whether it's just by myself or when I have a guest on one of our episodes. But before we move forward, I just want to let you guys know I'm not a preacher, and I want to make sure, and God is leading me, and He's the foundation of this. I'm far from a preacher. At the end of the day, I'm a servant, and I was just led to do this because, I'm not the oldest person. I've been through experiences. We all have been through experiences. But I knew knowing what I know now, I wish I would have known it when I was a little bit younger, and this is time. This information and the revelation that's going to be spoken on this podcast and on these episodes is timeless. So no matter what age you are, you can use this to carry yourself better in life, in business, and to be a better believer in Christ. But I just realized, hey, when I was younger, I wish I had this. I wish I had a platform like this. I wish I had somebody answering questions that would help me carry myself better in life. And when I started to find when I found myself in Christ, January 2nd, 2021, I wish there was something that, of course I had my church. Of course my church brought me. Of course my church was that thing for me. But for somebody that doesn't have a home church, I wish something, if back then I didn't have a home church, I wish I had something like this that helped me establish myself at being a believer in Christ. And as I'm saying this, I want to give a special shout out to my church, because my church made me the man that I am today to do the things that I'm doing right now on this platform. I want to give special thanks to my spiritual father, spiritual mother, spiritual father, Prophet Dr. Curving Dudone at the Wellright Kingdom Ministry, and his wife, our co-seer, Prophetess Melissa C. Dudone. Without them, I wouldn't know 90, 80, a majority of what I know about Christ, about God, about the Bible. I pray that He continues to guide me, and I continue to just be a servant under them. And as I'm shouting out my church, as I'm shouting out and giving thanks and honor to my spiritual father, I do want to extend an invitation. I've seen how much it impacted my life, and I want to invite you to our Glory Invasion Crusade that we're having this year. And what I want to let you guys know what Glory Invasion is too as well. Glory Invasion Crusade, it started in 2017 through my spiritual father. The Lord gave my spiritual father a vision that the world wanted to kill a particular anointing. The world was on a mission to kill that anointing, and the Lord led my spiritual father to conduct and host and do Glory Invasion Crusades, where we are operating in God's perfect will for man. Because Glory Invasion is God's perfect will for man, and God's perfect will being seeing Jesus Christ lifted up, preaching the message of Jesus Christ, the message of the cross, Jesus being King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Jesus as man and Jesus as God, and everything that has to do with His death, His resurrection, and everything within Glory Invasion is a place where there will be restoration in your life, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, everything that has to involve your life, restoration in that. Healing from sickness, deliverance from bondage. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from all the mental battles that I've had before coming to the church, before experiencing my first, my second, my third Glory Invasion. And I just want to extend that invitation to you guys, and just come. The flyer is going to be up. As you guys can see, the flyer right now is going to be February 14th, 15th, and the 16th. This 2025. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. And at the end of the day, I just want to, everything about me is to help you guys work towards a better mindset in life. And this is one of these things. This church, this program, this event, this Glory Invasion Crusade. And even if you want to experience the work of this ministry before Glory Invasion Crusade, you can even come to our Power Fridays. You can even come to our Senior Pastor Sundays, Power Friday, at our headquarters in Pompano. Doors open at 8 p.m. as well as Sunday at 1 p.m. doors open. Service starts at 1:30 for our Senior Pastor Sundays. I just want you guys to be there, experience, and come hungry for a change in your life. Come hungry for Christ. Come hungry for God. And just be consistent with everything, and you'll see how that works for you. My life changed. I've grown so much in strength and understanding and wisdom going to these services. And this, the strength, which is the key word that I want to highlight, is the main thing that I want to take to you guys on this particular episode. I want you guys to understand how to grow how to grow your strength in life and how to maintain strength in life. And before I teach you and guide you on how to grow and maintain your strength in life, you guys need to understand the context of strength. We're going to just dive right in. We're going to understand the context of strength. So strength is the quality or state of being strong. Now, strength can be classified in different measures. The root of it, though, is the quality or state of being strong. But there's many measures of strength. Of course, there's physical strength. That's self-explanatory. There's other strengths that we can go into, but I want to highlight 3 measures of strength that is most important that you guys need to understand so you can at least have a foundation to maintain it and to build upon it and grow. And then you can explore the other measures of strength. But within strength, within the root, and within the other measures, there's a couple lines of similarities that the different measures carry. So one of them being letting go of bondage. That's one thing that, and I'm going to go deep on all these things, but letting go of bondage is one thing that'll help you grow your measures of strength. The second thing is submission to God's will. The third thing is confession. And the last thing of all, which is the hardest for a majority of people, is acceptance. These lines that I just mentioned are all the root makeups of how you can grow your measures of strength. But it goes deeper beyond just the statement that I just said for each. Letting go of bondage, submission to God's will, confession, acceptance. The first measures of strength, which is key to learn, which is key to know and to understand. And I think it's the most important one, because without this, you won't really have a foundation to build upon, because this measure is everlasting in a way. It's everlasting in a way. And this is your strength to endure. My spiritual father said one time, where he said, even just comparing it to using Christianity or being a believer in Christ and using that walk to describe, the measure of strength to endure. Because he said, being a believer of Christ is not about time in the faith, in the walk. It's not about wisdom. It's not about understanding. Those help. Those is part of the foundation, but it's all about your strength to endure. It's all about how much can you endure? How much can you withstand persecution? How much can you withstand the troubles of the world that try to invoke its bondage onto you to cause you to fall into sin, to fall into the things that don't make you righteous? That's the main thing. And The big example that I want to give to you guys to help you understand and to build upon your that measure of strength is Jesus' crucifixion. Now, I'm going to give different examples for the different measures of strength, but for this one is Jesus' crucifixion. Like I told you earlier, the main roots for the different measures is letting go of bondage, submission to God's will, confession, and acceptance, right? The first thing that Jesus did in his journey and his walk to being crucified is Jesus, of course, he did his works, and of course, as you understand the Bible more and as you read the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you will understand how everything in there will help you understand, different aspects of your life. Yes, but in regards to your strength to endure, in Jesus' crucifixion, within Matthew, Jesus, and on his journey to being crucified, Jesus confessed his weakness. Jesus confessed his weakness. When Jesus was on a mountain, he was praying with his disciples. It was moments before he was about to be arrested to be crucified, right? Jesus went through a deep prayer, a prayer where blood was coming out of his body instead of sweat. He was going through so much anguish and all these things, and he's realizing, Lord, take this cup away from me, for I'm doing this, and this is going to lead me or bridge the gap into the second aspect to help build your strength, the measure of your strength to endure, which is he said, hey, let this cup pass me by, for this is not my will but your will. Because I want you guys to understand this. Jesus confessed his weakness. Because 90 to even 100% of you, if you were given the option to be crucified the way Jesus did or some other alternative, a majority of the time you're not going to pick the option to be crucified. Like from reading and visualizing the anguish Jesus went through in being crucified, and given that he knew what he was going to going to go through, and he already knew what it felt like before even going through it, because once again, he's God but in man's form, and he saw these things, he perceived all these things, and that made it even much harder for him to go through that within his own will as man. That's why he confessed his weakness to God, and that's the first way. Confession is the first way to help you grow your strength to endure. Confess your weakness, because in the Bible it says, "For I am made strong in my weakness within Christ, within God." I'm paraphrasing, of course. This shows you that as you confess, as you lean on God, his strength, and all these things, he will give you the strength. He will give you the strength to endure even something as bad as being crucified. He will give you the strength to endure something as bad as being crucified. There's many times people go through mental battles, emotional battles, numerous types of battles where you don't even think you can walk through it or you can even endure it. But if you realize God gives you strength within all of that, how much more can you endure? And moving into the second aspect of building your measures of strength, your strength to endure, is Jesus knew the will of the Father, and he denied his own will. He confessed. He said, hey, I can't withstand it. And he also realized that, hey, I still need to do what is required, because this is not my will. I have no say so, because I'm walking in the Father's will. Like, even though God gave us will over our life, God still has a will that he envisions for us. And given that Jesus knew that, Jesus leaned on God's strength, and he knew what needed to be done. He knew what was required of him to be able to continue to endure. And if you look at his crucifixion, yeah, it was painful. Yeah, he went through all these things, but Jesus still got out on top. Jesus was still resurrected. if you lean and confess your weakness and lean on God's strength, even though you can't see it, even though you can't picture it, even though you can't understand it, because it's not meant for you to understand in the moment, it's meant for you to understand once you get to the other side of it, that's when you realize it's all worth it. Confessing your weakness, leaning on God for strength, knowing the will he has for your life. And you won't even know the will if you don't spend time in your word, if you don't spend time with God, if you don't spend time reading the gospels, because that's the main root of knowing God's will, of knowing Jesus, of knowing everything there is about God's kingdom. If you don't know these things, you won't be able to do the last leg of building your strength to, or building your measure of strength to endure, which is acceptance. The last way to grow your strength to endure, your measure of strength to endure, is acceptance and commitment to any circumstance. I wrote this: people can't endure because they don't want to accept the circumstances. Many times people are too entitled, they're too self-centered to accept what is even going on in their life, what is even going on around them, what they've done, you name it. Because they don't even have that acceptance, they won't be able to confess their weakness, because they won't even accept that they're weak. They'll just be prided, or they would just be in something that they would just be in a state of mind that is opposite of confessing your weakness. You need to have that type of acceptance, because acceptance, and I believe acceptance and commitment are tied together. And when you have commitment and you understand what commitment is, that's when you're able to build upon and have discipline. My spiritual father even said in his book, Fruits and Wisdom. I forgot the name of the title, but of the title exactly, but I'll just put it up on the screen. He said once you have commitment, then you can have discipline. You can't have discipline without commitment, because you need to be committed to something to then build discipline for. And like when Jesus' crucifixion, Jesus accepted his circumstance. Jesus accepted who he was. He accepted the mission and the will that God set for him, being man, and he did what was required. He had discipline. Even though he wanted to walk, even though he wanted everything to pass, he still walked through. He still accepted it, and he still got to the other side, and he still built his foundation. And look how it turned out afterwards. He resurrected. He freed us from sin. He got back the key to life, and so much more. And he's continuing to work today. Like, for my believers in Christ, you see how he's working for your life. And even for those who are new, you will see what he will do for your life. You just got to have that faith. And this is leading me to go into the second measure of strength. And this is your strength to prevail. You just talked about Jesus and how he prevailed, and once he accepted, he confessed, he knew the Father's will, he got on the other side on top, resurrected after 3 days. I want to talk to you about the strength to prevail, but using the story of David and Goliath, okay? Because the measure of strength to prevail means to be strong in another's detriment, to basically prevail against. I want to dissect the term or the statement "to be strong," because we mentioned in the root of strength is a quality or state of being strong, and we talked about the other legs being let go of bondage, submission to God's will, confession, acceptance, and we talked about how those tied into your measure of strength to endure. But to be strong is possessing skills and qualities. Possessing skills and qualities that create a likelihood of success. That's what to be strong means. Possessing skills and qualities that create a likelihood of success. Now, we talked about the other legs that make up the other measures of strength that you're able to grow. which is letting go of bondage, submission to God's will, confession, and acceptance. And I'm only saying things over and over again so you guys can truly understand. You can truly get how they intertwine with each other, but how they differ when it comes to growing the other measures of strength. Because in your strength to prevail, it starts with acceptance. Your strength to endure starts with confession. But this one starts with acceptance. Because in the story of David and Goliath, David was a shepherd's boy, or he was a shepherd. He was a shepherd. He was tending to sheep, and back then that was looked on as one of the meekest, meek being weak, looked down upon. You were considered not as strong as a warrior, somebody that was in the army, or somebody that was of or had a noble profession back in the day, in the times where Christ was walking. But being a shepherd, you went through a series of experiences that only a shepherd went through. Granted, warriors went through their own experiences that made them warriors, made them who they are, gave them particular skills and qualities that favored a warrior. But since people didn't really have their eye on being a shepherd, they didn't know what they went through. David went through scenarios where he went against lions, bears, whatever type of beast you named it that tried to attack his sheep. And I'm only saying this because in the story of David and Goliath, I'm gonna make the long story short. David met with the king and his brothers, who were warriors, who were much stronger, taller, older than him, because he was young. He was only 17, but they were much stronger, older, and more. And visually, they looked as if they carried the mantle to fight, to go to war, to take down a beast as big as Goliath. But even they were afraid. Given the experiences that they went through to give them skills and qualities, even they were afraid of Goliath. And they didn't even, and when David brought up, hey, let me fight him, let me take him on, let me get the job done, let me allow Israel to prevail over the Philistines, over our enemies, because who is this guy? I've taken down people, beasts, animals, creatures, just like this guy. Like, I can do it. And the reason why I say building your strength to prevail starts with acceptance is because you need to accept your experience that you go through. Many times people want to lock up the experiences they've went through in a box and throw it out because in the eyes of other people, it doesn't matter. Oh, it's nothing. They can't. It doesn't make sense to them, or it's pointless. But that makes you who you are. Whether it was ugly, whether it was beautiful, all those things gave you the qualities, gave you the skills to be who you are today. If you lock up your experiences and you don't accept what you've been through, how much more are you going to walk in the will that God has for you? Because God takes and he uses broken people. But if you want to throw away your brokenness, that's like throwing away the will God has for you, because that's part of it. My spiritual father said one time, how can you hide your shadow? How can you try to hide your shadow? Your shadow is your shadow. When the light shines upon you, it casts a shadow for people to see. But at the end of the day, the light is shining on you and you're moving within the light. You have to accept your shadow. You have to accept that that's there so you can be able to embrace the light. Building your strength, building the measure of strength to prevail, you have to accept. You have to accept. You have to accept. And I believe that's the main thing and the only thing to build your measure of strength to prevail. You have to accept, because without accepting, you won't be able to do anything else. And that's the first thing you have to do. And that leads me to, and the story of David, David and Goliath, and how he prevailed and how he won over his enemies and was able to give a win to the people of Israel, leads me into the third measure of strength. And this is the strength to be made solid. This is strong and unlikely to fall over. The third measure of strength is strength to be made solid, which is strong and unlikely to fall over. We talked about the root of strength, meaning the quality state of being strong, and we talked about what being strong is: possessing skills and qualities that create a likelihood of success. And for this measure of strength, I want to use God establishing the people of Israel. Okay. And within the root of strength, I mentioned, and I'm saying this again, the main legs within the root of strength is letting go of bondage, submission to God's will, confession, and acceptance. The first thing you need in order to be made solid, in order to grow your measure of strength to be made solid, is to let go of bondage. And the reason why I'm using the people of Israel is because the people of Israel went through a series of experiences in order for them to eventually be made solid in the new land that God promised them. It was a long journey. They went through wilderness, they went through tests, they went through trials. But the first thing that was the toughest thing for them to do in order to be even remotely close to building that measure of strength to be made solid was letting go of bondage. Because if you look at it, they're in bondage to the people of Egypt. They were slaves. God freed them, but because they were so used to that bondage and that was all that they knew, when they got out and when they was free, that's all they was thinking about. That's all they was thinking about. They even though they was free, there was never even they were mentally, and keep this in mind when I say mentally they weren't free from that bondage. So the first thing is letting go of bondage. You have to first let go of that bondage. So when you're free, you have to still fight. It's a mental battle. You have to still go and embrace where you are now, the present, accept what you've been through, accept these things, but accept where you're going, accept the light that's shining on you and the light that's guiding you. Accept all these things, letting go of bondage, so then you can be able to submit to a direction, because until you let go of bondage, you're free, but it doesn't stop there. You're free, but my spiritual father said, and I've learned that the goal, and bear with me, the goal is not to be free, but is to be free from bad bondage. Because bad bondage are things, and to give you some context, bad bondage are an example of bad bondage in today's world is smoking, drinking, partying. That looks different for many different cultures. But it's these things that causes you to not live a righteous life, that causes you to live a life outside of God's will. In order for you to know God's will for yourself is to go into the Bible, find a church, get a spiritual father or spiritual mother or mentor to help teach you these things. And on the podcast, we preach. Even though I'm not a preacher, I'm just a servant, but we preach finding a mentor and all these things that help develop you as a person. But going back to the root, when you're free, the goal is not to be free and to stay free, is to be free from bad bondage and to be directed to good bondage. Because if you look at what God was trying to do with the people of Israel, he freed them, helped them, he blessed them. He blessed them to be free from that bad bondage, and when they were free, he gave them a direction. They were guided. They were guided by the cloud by day and fire by night, and during that journey in the wilderness and everything, he was giving them commandments, and on his journey from their point up until the point where God made them solid, he gave them commandments, he gave them rules, he gave them the good type of bondage that'll help them walk in the will God has for them. Like, you have to be sensitive to these things. Once you let go of bondage, you're free, but you have to pay attention to the voice or the thing or the spirit that God blessed you with to guide you to that good type of bondage so you can stay in God's will for your life, because that's how you can be prosperous. That's how that prosperity can last. That's how God can continue to bless you and speak to you. Because when God was giving them the commandments and doing these things, mentally they were still thinking about that bad bondage, and they were still having the old habits of the bad bondage. When God was blessing them with food, even though God gave them rules and regulations on how to embrace and accept the food and use the food, they still use the same habits that they had in bondage to try to save it and do these things, and that worked against them in their favor when it comes to getting out of the wilderness, finishing that journey, and getting to and finally building that foundation to be made solid. Because God set a certain point in time for the people of Israel. Like, it's a certain distance from where they was in bondage to the location that they needed to be made solid, because they needed to be made solid at a particular location. But because they didn't let go of that bad bondage, it caused them to do loops, hurdles, make the same mistakes over and over again, die, fall, and go through these things that delayed them being made solid. So that's the first thing. You need to let go of bondage. Once you are free, and you submit to God's will. When you submit to God's direction, you're able to acquire the right type of bondage to lead you into God's will. And then from then on, once you understand these measures and you build foundations and all these things, that's when you are able to be made solid, which gives you the foundation for number 3. And you're able to then grow your strength. I'm giving you the contents of strength before we talk about how to grow your strength, because without these things, without the foundation, it's going to fall. It's going to fall when tribulation, when trials comes, when things happen that affect you mentally comes. You won't... your lessons, your strength, it won't last. You will burn out. And before you even get to how to grow strength, you need to understand how strength flows. And I mentioned the key word that I said keep in mind, which is mentally. Once you build your foundation and your strength, you need to understand how it flows so you can be able to work it out in a sense, or understand what is being used when you are using your strength. Because how strength flows and how it's how strength flows to know how to maintain it, it starts with the mind. It starts in 3 ways. It starts in the mind, the heart, and in your decisions. And the reason why I say it starts in your mind is because during a crossover service with at my church, 2025 crossover service, Dr. Tanya Hall mentioned this about strength. Because she thought strength was in power. She thought strength was in all these other things, when really strength starts in the mind. Strength is our ability. How strength flows begins with our ability to survive mental attacks. Because if you look at it, it starts in the mind, and at the end of the day, you are your most consistent thought. Going back to the example that I did with the people of Israel, their most consistent thought after God freed them from bondage was them in bondage. They kept having that same thought. And yeah, we know the enemy tries to plant thoughts into your mind. It's that second, it's that third, it's that fourth thought that you have that will determine the type of strength that you have mentally. We understand thoughts come in all the time, and sometimes thoughts that we have can be outrageous sometimes. But it's that second, it's that third, it's that fourth, it's that consistent thought that you have that make or break who you are. Because as you consistently think about it, that's when it begins to download into your heart. And it even says it in the Bible where be mindful be mindful, because how you are is determined by, or how you are defiled is determined by your heart. if you're consistent having thoughts in bondage and that downloads into your heart is going to be in bondage. But if you have thoughts of strength, if you have thoughts of prosperity, if you have thoughts of this, of thoughts about being righteous, then those things are what is going to be downloaded into your heart. And I wrote this thing down when it comes, which is just a shameless gem. And I'll talk about this in another video, where the first thing that we should have downloaded just in life are the fruits of the Spirit. Because many times, and I'm going to just give you this small example, because many times we go through experiences that cause us to be emotionally compromised. And the first thought that we have is to react and to make it. And most of the times that reaction is something that is outside of the fruits of the Spirit, being patience, love, long suffering, all of these things. When if you have that downloaded into your heart and you're constantly thinking about that over those thoughts that cause you to react, you will then be able to respond instead of react in the fruits of the Spirit. But that's the same shameless plug. I'm gonna leave that right there. but your how strength flows and to know how to maintain it begins and starts in the mind, then in the heart, and then in your decisions. And I wrote this down because in your decisions are your character. Your character is the moral makeup of who you are, the product and your heart and your mind combined. Because your mind, you are what you are, your most consistent thought, and that most consistent thought downloads into your heart, and that translates into your decisions, what you choose to do, your activities, heck, even your profession, and all these things that establish who you are. And all these things compound. And once you understand how strength flows, then you'll be able to understand how to grow your strength. How to grow your strength is super simple. But if you don't understand the context, if you don't understand the foundation, if you don't understand the root of strength, if I were to just tell you the three ways to grow your strength, which is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, it would just be me giving you a dumbbell full of air. When given that you were lacking the context, if you try to work out with that dumbbell of air, you won't gain muscle, you won't gain strength, you won't gain none of these things. But the context is what weighs it down, so then you can be able to learn and grow your strength. Because using knowledge, like within the three, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, in knowledge ties to your mind. It's what, because knowledge is what is the things that you receive in life, the things that help build your understanding of life, how to flow, how to do certain things, how to move. Knowledge, like feeding your mind, then to let it download into, like, you have to understand and realize, what are you receiving, who is feeding you. You have to ask it. When growing your strengths, you have to ask yourself these root questions, and you have to backtrace it. Like, is these things coming from things that are righteous? Are these things coming from things that are of God, that are following God's will? If you want to follow God's will, if you want to stay under God's will, are the things that you are receiving in God's will? The knowledge, the person that is feeding you knowledge and understanding. And that then leads to the next thing in how to grow your strength, which is wisdom. Because within knowledge, you're receiving these things, but wisdom is when you are answering these questions. Like, when you're answering these questions, when you're doing these activities like meditating, are you meditating on what you've learned? Are you applying what you've learned? Do you have a mentor that is imparting his lessons, his wisdom into you from what he's learned to what he's trying to get you to learn and to understand and to fast track your wisdom? Like, you have to understand, and you have to go through these things and answer these types of questions for yourself, because I can't answer these questions for you. You have to ask yourself these questions too. And matter of fact, I might even have a guest to talk and answer these questions, and to go even further to help you guys go through the process of asking these questions, so you can then build your strength, build your knowledge, build your wisdom. Because the last thing, which is understanding, I believe this about understanding. I believe understanding is a form of carrying. Because if you look at how what understanding is being able to like, when you have true understanding, is when you're able to teach somebody something you've learned without having to go back and meditate, without having to go back to your notebook or anything like that to be able to teach them, because at that point it's a part of you. You are carrying it. That is true understanding. Because true understanding is when people look at you, they say, hey, yo, this guy is righteous, this guy is this guy is that, this girl is this girl is that. That's when you truly carry understanding. And understanding can translate into different fields: spirituality, business, all these things, street knowledge, all these things. When you truly carry understanding, when you truly know how that relates to strength, you'll be able to grow your measures of strength. You'll be able to grow your strength and to take your life to a whole new level. But many times people won't even sit and take the time to even ask themselves these questions. When growth truly starts, my spiritual father said this in this book. Because I can give you the key, which is this: to grow in life. That's the key. Well, to start your growth in life, because in his book, he says that you can't plan growth. You can't say, hey, I'm going to grow this day. My growth spurt is going to be that day. No, it kind of just happens. And it happens as you are operating in the foundation of strength and in the foundation of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Because as you operate and flow in these things, all these things will just happen. But it starts with you asking yourself these questions: finding a church, finding a mentor, going through the steps, going and taking the steps necessary to be able to create an environment where that growth will just happen. Now, at the end of the day, my name is Olivier J. Darcis, helping you do to do life well and do it with God. Peace.